Hello, this is Marilyn Davidson with the Right on Crime podcast. I am the Oklahoma director for Right on Crime, and today I am talking to Molly Lenty. She is our new director for Idaho, and we are going to talk about second chances. So Molly, welcome to the team. First off, we are so excited to have you. So talk a little bit, we'll get started talking about your background, how you kind of ended up here with us at Right on Crime.
Sure. Well, I spent 25 years in a career in corporate banking. I was the head of government and community relations over 5 states, based out of Boise, and in that role got to work with a lot of really great community-based programs, nonprofit entry programs, workforce development, statewide initiatives. And after retiring from banking, had the opportunity to say, okay, what do I want to do next? Yeah. What is this next chapter for me in my career? And knowing that there's so much work to be done in supporting those that are currently incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, opportunities to keep families intact and really give people a second chance when they deserve it.
Yeah. And I love that. I love your background, how you have a good, you're also an entrepreneur, businesswoman, and owner. So you have a good background in understanding kind of that industry and the economics of it. And so you understand the value of having a good workforce. So what do you think is good for Idaho right now? What's the best opportunities for them to make changes in the way they do things so that we can provide more second chances, especially with employment?
Well, I think, much like across the country, there's so much need from a workforce capacity. We know that we as a country are facing a workforce cliff. Yeah. We have got a number of jobs that are going to need to be filled, and not necessarily the backlog of skilled workforce that's available. So when I think about some innovative programs that are happening elsewhere across the country, Rhode Island has a really great example of leveraging a federal grant through the Department of Labor to create a program that is within their Department of Corrections to focus on creating pathways for those that are incarcerated, so that when they're re-entering society, they really come out with a plan. Yeah. And, there's statistics that can prove that those that have re-entered society that have a career pathway, if they remain employed for 1 year after incarceration, the likelihood of them reoffending goes down significantly. So there's statistics that show the value. We know there is a group of individuals that are going to be re-entering society that need to have a pathway, need to have gainful employment. And there's just so many opportunities for business owners as they're really looking at finding a qualified workforce to consider this population as a tremendous resource.
Yeah. And you at our states are very similar, which I'm starting to find out.
Yes.
Was not very familiar with Idaho before you started, but I've been paying attention to the political environment. So it's really exciting to see the parallel between what both of our states are doing. And in Oklahoma, we have a very, at one point had the largest prison population in the country. We're now, I think, 3 or 4. We kind of go back and forth. And so we have a large population living in our communities that have felony backgrounds. We have about 5,000, 6,000 a year that are re-entering into our communities. So we've been addressing that a lot through different community initiatives. And one of the big key factors in being successful is getting the business community involved, because we recognized early on that if we don't organically get the business community involved, instead of telling them they need to get involved, we were not going to be successful. And I know that you kind of have some plans for that in Idaho. How do you think that's going to go? What do you think your challenges are going to be, but what do you think are also your opportunities that are already there?
Sure. Well, I know we're really excited to learn from some of the best practices in Oklahoma, especially moving your women's incarceration rate from being the highest in the country, being able to move that down. Unfortunately, Idaho is now, number 1 in the country for our women's incarceration rates. Yeah. So I think looking at that particular...
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for taking that from us.
We're hoping to learn from what worked in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But, bringing people around the table, I think first, specifically for the business community, but community at large as well, being able to educate and inform, understand that we do have a really high incarceration rate, and why, and what are our plans in order to help these individuals re-enter society.
Yeah.
I've seen statistics where 95% of those that are incarcerated do re-enter. So what is the plan? How are we really helping them to be successful and truly ensure that they have been rehabilitated and prepared to be a part of our workforce, become a part of our community, especially for those that have children.
Yes.
Knowing that the poverty rates for children of families, parents that are incarcerated are sometimes 3 times worse from a poverty perspective. So really providing the opportunity to give a hand up to those that have been formerly incarcerated to ensure that they can re-enter society and raise their families and support all the things that all of us want in our own lives.
Yes, and you talked about educating the public, and I think it's not just educating them on our incarceration rates, but educating them on the value that these people can bring to their companies, which a lot of people kind of look past. And when I worked for the Department of Corrections, I always speak about how the people that are, a majority of them, that are releasing and looking for jobs, the value that they bring in, they have so much to lose if they're unsuccessful. And a lot of them, especially in Oklahoma, they're being supervised. So they have someone there checking on them, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. So those people are going to have better attendance rates showing up for work. They're going to behave better. Obviously, you're going to have your outliers. You're going to have your bad actors. But I think educating them on that, just want to take a moment. I want to tell one of my personal favorite stories. I'm a big advocate for preparing them before they leave prison and getting them the resources, which I think was something in Oklahoma we did not do very well probably 10, 15 years ago. But also not just training behind the walls, but training for jobs that are actually realistic for them to get. And while I was there, we started our first behind the walls cosmetology school at our women's prison, which I could talk about for 30 minutes. It's an amazing program, and it's not just training them while they're there. The program is there when the day they release, provides them with clothing, helps them get housing, helps make sure that they get a job. They've partnered with a couple of different companies to hire the girls. And one of the girls I met when I was at DOC, and she was in the cosmetology program, and her story just stuck out in my head. And I've always used it when I'm talking about unfair sentencing practices in Oklahoma, and because she really did have a story that was she was not treated very well by the justice system. Well, last week I am getting my nails done, and in walks this girl, kind of walking in, walks up to the lady doing my nails, and she's like, "Hey, you got time to do my nails when you're done?" And I look at her, and I immediately know who she is, immediately. And I'm in shock. And it's her. It's that girl I met in prison.
Wow.
And here she is working next door, successful, tells me about how, she's got a relationship with her son now and how amazing and wonderful she's doing. And I'm thinking, those are the stories that these lawmakers need to hear, are those stories of those people and the lives that are being changed, and the fact that the ones that automatically assume if I hire this criminal, they're going to steal from me and they're going to be, this horrible person, but they're not. They have so much value.
Well, and there are programs that are out there, bonds, different resources for business owners to help protect them when they are looking at hiring somebody that is formerly incarcerated. So there's a lot of those protections, if you will, that are available to business owners.
Yeah.
We know that large corporations are already participating in really successful reentry programs within their own companies. But I think the example you just gave, this is something that regardless of the size of that a state or city, there are opportunities if those pathways are provided.
Yeah, so we're looking at Oklahoma at doing a Second Chance Business Coalition similar to what they do in Texas and on the national level. And you talk about large corporations, one of the big companies is JP Morgan Chase. And I'm like, if JP Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the country, can stand up and say, we are a second chance business, like all these other companies, like you really don't have an excuse to not do it.
Sure.
But so I think that's very powerful. And we do already have some really amazing companies in our state. The NBA is really great at it. We've got WW Steel, which is one of the largest steel manufacturers in the country as well, that are really good about hiring. And so I think that's important, of having them stand up and say, we can do this. And it doesn't just benefit them, it benefits all of society, everyone living in our state. So
I think when you asked about, a strategy for Idaho, I think it's exactly what you just demonstrated there, where there are companies that are doing it really well and giving them a platform to talk about how it's been working for them to help meet a lot of their greatest needs, especially as we look forward to the next few years and some of the challenges that businesses are going to be facing with their own workforce issues. There's also, I think, some policy opportunities, and it's going to vary, state by state. I know in Idaho, 1 in 5 jobs requires a license.
Yeah.
And there are barriers for those that are formerly incarcerated in order to be approved and obtain a license. That's 1 in 5 jobs. When you multiply that by the workforce cliff and the needs that are going to be continuing to expand over the next few years, this is a population that we really can't afford to have that barrier reside. So I think looking at just, some of those issues that surround barriers to employment, as well as educating and forming the business community, and really celebrating that this is an opportunity to not only help business, but to do something really good. And something that benefits the community. Benefits keeping families intact, benefits our future workforce as we look at the youth in each of our states. So I'm really excited to dig in and look at what we can be doing as Right on Crime to really move forward second chance hiring and second chance employment for the business community as well.
Yeah, and it is a complex issue. There are a lot of things like licensing, the people that want to just completely say no to anyone with a felony without giving them an individualized review. It's getting the proper training for people. And there's a lot of good programs out there. So I love how Right on Crime, we're not trying to create a new program. We're just trying to take best practices and see how we can remove those barriers and implement it in our states to help people. And it's kind of a PR issue too, of the people that are like, no, anyone who committed a felony is automatically just a horrible criminal and I don't want them. And it's trying to, like we said earlier, change people's minds on that issue.
I think when you look at the needs for employment, we know that Idaho has a great need to upskill and educate its workforce. When we look at the prison population, we've got thousands of those that are incarcerated re-entering into society, and it's such a huge opportunity to help equip them with the skills, the resources that are needed so that we can leverage them for our future workforce. I'm just going to talk about one sector industry right now. When we think about manufacturing, and there's a big push, a big focus on reshoring, onshoring manufacturing. There is data that shows that 3.8 million new employees are going to be needed in manufacturing by year 2033. That's 8 years. Where are we going to find those employees?
Exactly.
We've got a huge population
and a
of
huge
people that are
opportunity.
wanting to work, that are needing to work. And, there are trades and there are jobs in manufacturing across the country, and especially in Idaho, that we're going to need to fill. This is a population we can't ignore. We really need to put a plan around it.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today as we talk about second chance hiring all across the country, not just Oklahoma and Idaho, and hope you join us again.